Great. As we've, not been able to be together, we've been looking for ways to connect with others and to keep our skills sharp and to keep the energy going around comedy in Charlotte. And we've been lucky enough to have Chris and Paul join us from the Chris and Paul show.
Woohoo!
You guys have been together and doing comedy now for almost 20 years, or is it?
Actually, we hit our 21st anniversary on May 20th.
Oh, what did you buy?
Wow.
What did you buy?
21 years. That's crazy. That's so weird.
Did y'all get trashed?
Yeah. We were so crazy.
Yeah, we partied so hard we were in bed by 8 o'clock.
I wish.
Like
I'm
most
reading
21-year-olds these days.
I'm so old. I just feel so old. Like, people are like, well, they were like, you want to go out at like 10 o'clock? I'm like, oh, God, why? I don't have that anymore.
Well, when we were on tour, we're excited. We want to meet everyone. We're like, oh, this is great. Let's go hang out. Let's go get a drink. And then like an hour after our show, we're like, oh, I just want to go back to our hotel and sleep.
That's called celebrity status, though, It's called that.
Yeah, Paul. Yeah, Paul. I met Paul when I guess I was 16 or so.
Yeah.
And Paul wanted to get like a sketch troupe together, and I didn't know what that was. And like right before that, my buddy was like, "Want to do an improv show?" I'm like, "I don't know what that is, but yeah, okay." And it was basically us just getting on stage and saying the F word, like, "Hey, where the fuck are we?" And everyone, the whole like all like the high school crowd's like, "That's hilarious!" And you think you're so great. And and Paul was like, "Hey, we met through a mutual friend, and he wanted to put together a sketch troupe." And I was like, "Yeah, what's that?" And then he introduced me to Kids in the Hall and all these other things. And I'm like, I was a big comedy fan, but like I didn't really do a whole lot of research. But my best friend growing up, his dad is like this huge old movie collector, and like he teaches at universities and stuff. So growing up, if I ever slept over at my buddy's house, he always had these movie nights every Saturday night, which I was like, oh, like shoot me, because it was just like old black and whites of just like whatever. I'm like, oh, just like hang out, let's go play Nintendo. But every once in a while, there'd be like a Three Stooges or like a Laurel and Hardy or something like that, and I was like, oh, this is great. Like Little Rascals, I grew up watching, and Paul and I kind of bonded over our love of the old time stuff as well as a lot of the new stuff. And from that, we just started. We just kept this love going.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing Chris twice. He was part of a show called what was it? What was the one? Noises Off.
Oh yeah.
And I knew Chris, and we were all. I knew we were all going to get together soon. And I just remember a moment where someone pulled a sheet off him, and he had this look on his face. And I laughed out loud so hard. I'm like, I can't wait to work with this kid. So that was the moment for me. Like, yeah, I'm excited to eventually work with him. And then I saw him like the following year. We were working together. I think we started working together. We didn't do a show yet. And you were in, was it Guys and Dolls? And you played Nicely?
Yeah.
Remember that? And I'm like...
Paul was like, he's a little older than me. So he was the guy in the parking lot that was like, what's up, high school kid? And I was like, hey, guy with the car. So my mom was like, who the hell is this guy that wants to like, I'm like, it's okay. It's just Paul. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So I guess was that when you're like, didn't you say me that was like when you did Nice and Johnson, that was like your moment of like, I want to be on stage kind of deal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
That was just awesome. So I loved going to shows, and so I was I became a fan of Chris O'Neill right away.
Young little 16-year-old.
Yeah, I was stalking him.
It's amazing that when I try to start a sketch group by picking up kids at a high school parking lot, it doesn't.
That work?
Yeah.
Hey, you guys, any little teenagers want to make people laugh? Yes, sir.
We're gonna rage because I'm older 21.
Yeah. Well, what was crazy is my senior year of high school, before like these shows, I was the worst student in the world. I was just horrible. I loved hanging out, socializing, and wasn't a bad kid. I just didn't like school, and we just did not work out. but I wanted to do. I got into the theater thing at school, and it was great because I was like, wow, there's pretty girls, and I don't really have to do anything. This is great, and it was just one of those things. And I went to the principal in my high school my senior year, and I was like, I want to do a comedy show at the end of the year. Can I have like the auditorium to just put on a show? And he's like, well, what is it? And I go, I have no idea. I'll figure it out. And he's like, yeah, sure. And he just threw me this date in late May. And so when I met Paul and we got this group together, he was like, we got to find a place to perform. And I'm like, for weeks, I'm like, yeah, what the hell, how are we going to do that? And then like one day I was like, I had the 700 seat auditorium available. Like, where the hell was that? Where were you with that information? I'm like, yeah. So the whole year we just learned it was trial and error, but we promoted this one comedy show. And, we saw Kids in the Hall on tour at that time. So that we were like, I want the opening to be like that. We have to do like this. And they have this. And the music, we like took their opening, like warm up music when the crowd was coming in. We're like, it has to be just like this. And we were so inspired of just that feeling we got going, like the anticipation. And yeah, we sold out the show. I mean, it took us all year, but like surprisingly, we sold the show out. And that was the moment I was like, this is the coolest. And I look at the tapes now and like, it was all like just horrible sketches, but like we learned how to put some kind of show on. And at the end of it, our buddy, his dad was a cop, and they played a joke on me to get me arrested at the end of the show. I had no idea, but they came up to me afterwards and handcuffed me and like threw me up against the wall as like the crowd was leaving. And they were like, what the hell's going on? And it was like that McLovin moment when like you got arrested at the end of the movie and everyone thought it was like the coolest thing. So that was a very special night that really got me hooked into performing and being in this silly world.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
Wow, great story.
Classic. I'm going to give everybody a chance to ask questions. So what I'd like for you to do is in the chat, just let me know if you have a question. You can just send a private message to me, say I've got a question to ask, and we'll come to you kind of randomly. Hopefully we'll get to everybody, but we may not be.
I don't know. Chris said we could go 5 hours, so I think we're good.
Oh, well then, yeah.
Do it. I hear the kids still awake. I'm like, keep talking.
Good. If you would turn off your cameras, except for Chris and Paul, obviously. And I would suggest gallery view is the best view to watch in. But yeah, what are you guys doing now in the quarantine times? Anything to keep your skills sharp? How are you spending your time?
It was really weird. Like the last show we did was in Charlotte, and it was March 13th, I guess, right? Or it was 12th, right? When everything was like, Broadway's closed, Tom Hanks has it, NBA's closed. We're like, what the hell is going on? And
once Tom Hanks got it, that was like, all right, we're done.
All right, now everything's shut down. No, but we did the show.
The NBA, just Tom Hanks, right? Tom Hanks, no.
We did the show, and then the next day we flew home, and it was just like really, as you could tell, it was just very eerie. And and then we just kind of went into quarantine, and it was weird because Paul and I, we were touring around for about the better half of a year, I guess, at that point, and everything just went on hold. It was just everyone's going through this craziness, but it was just weird to be like, okay, I don't know what's happening. Like whatever momentum we had from like the Bring the Funny show that we were still riding off of was like done. We were like, oh shit, okay, now we need to find another show if we can get on something else, hopefully. But yeah, so the end of this year has just been me like homeschooling my daughter miserably, failing horribly, like so bad. And yeah, just recently Paul and I just started getting back together, and we set up like a makeshift studio in my garage. And we filmed, one of the writers from Bring the Funny, actually, he's working on a show on TBS now with Jason Sudeikis. It's Tournament of Laughs. It's like kind of like a viral thing.
Yeah.
So Paul and I were hired. We filmed 2 bits for them. So we were like, wow, all right, so we got to go get tested together because like we wanted to be, I have 2 little girls at home. We have a lot of high risk people around us, and we just want to be safe. So yeah, we took like a date to go get tested, and then like the next day they're like, "Are you sick? Do you have symptoms?" We're like, "No, we're just filming this thing tomorrow. Is it okay if we just get tested?" And we got tested, filmed the next day, and we did the same thing. We did it. We just filmed the last bit, last week. We got tested again, and so it seems like that's going to be like our whatever sketches or anything we want to film. We're going to the doctor first before we do it. So we got to make the time count.
I feel like that's a great sketch right there. Just you guys going to get tested over and over again.
I swear to God, it gives you motivation to actually like make use of your time, because there's so many times we're like, it's late. We'll pick this up next week and whatever. It just never ends. It's like we have to do 2 things today. It has to be today. It doesn't matter what time it ends, because we're only healthy for the next,
however minutes. Well, it was funny. I was just telling Chris when we got tested last week because we were filming. It's funny because him and I have done everything together. It's like him and I was like, no, this time last year, April last year, we were sitting in a green room on Universal Studios, and now we're sitting in the same room getting tested for coronavirus. Like we've done everything together.
Yeah, the doctor recognized us. They were like, all right, we're like sitting there like in the principal's office, and she's like, all right, who's up next? And we like jumped on the seat, and it's just one of those things where like we're like best friends and brothers. So we've gone through super ups and super downs, but we still love getting on stage, and even if nothing happens from it, like that's the one thing too. It's like we love it so much, and I'm sure you guys all love it the same. That it's like kind of like, wow, why do you guys keep doing this? And like you're getting older, and like you haven't made it, or whatever the hell that BS is. And Paul and I just have a blast doing it. So so the biggest bummer has been kind of just being held on the sidelines, so we can't really do anything right now. But we're trying to be creative and do some new stuff. So we'll see.
Good. Well, we appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to turn over and let Carla ask a question or two.
I have 2 questions for you. The first one is, do you guys have any like training background? Like, did you guys go anywhere? I mean, you're so out close to New York. Did you go anywhere and train, take classes? Anyone other than Kids in the Hall that inspires?
So the great thing about living in New York, a lot of people put out workshops. So we both did Second City, which was in New York for a while. And then I would take workshop. I actually got to do a workshop with Bill Irwin, who is if anyone doesn't know him, look him up. He's a clown. He's one of the best clowns going. And I took a lot of different workshops with some clowning. And then I took a 2-year extensive acting class, and I actually improved my comedy. So there was always trying to find workshops. That was a great thing about New York. There's always something going on where you can just get some more information. And that's all what Chris and I were always about, was like feeding us, just get something out there. And then Chris and I would go, we lived right around the corner from a Tower Records. So we would go and rent DVDs and get some type of comedy. And then Chris would come home and say, hey, did you hear about this person? Like, no, let's watch it. Or this is even kind of before YouTube really exploded. So we would constantly just try to find something for us. And then Chris and I would also go to a ton of shows also. So we're always looking at different comedians, just getting inspired by what we're seeing on stage and what we want to do, or how we want to translate what we want. So yeah, that was a lot of that, especially for the first 5-6 years.
Yeah, we met at a community theater in our hometown, and we took a lot of classes there. And we've just recently filmed at this community theater for these bits that we do, and we rehearsed there for when we did the Bring the Funny show, and it's like our home base, and we love the place. It's amazing. So we did a lot of classes there, and then a lot of it was just kind of seeing other shows, studying a lot. I think it was 18. And I got cast in this like improv TV pilot, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm 18. I'm like, this is it. I'm gonna be, like, oh my god, I can't believe, like, I'm like the young guy. I'm like the Jimmy Fallon, like when he was on SNL. And I'm like, this is it. And the other people that were in it were these like just amazing improvisers from New York, and they beat the shit out of me. I remember I went to the first rehearsal, and I thought I was hot shit. And this was like the best lesson I ever learned very early on. And they were running laps around me, and I was like, I don't know what to, because I never took the classes. I never really studied at that point. I thought I was like, I'm a natural, I guess, right? And I remember they pulled me to the side after the class, after the first rehearsal, and they were like, hey, what the hell's going on with you? Was everything okay? And I was like, and from that moment, like my ego, everything shattered. And it was so great to happen that early on, because what I did after that was the next rehearsal. I went up to everyone in the class, or in the pilot, and I asked, I was like, how do you do that? Like, how do you do this? How do you know how to turn into that? How are you on stage and you don't have to talk? How do you just like be there? And I'm fascinated by it, because I think we all know that like comedy is it's like magic, you know. It's so specific and it's so fragile, you know. If you're telling a joke and you just stumble slightly, for some reason it's not funny anymore. It's almost like the illusion's gone. You go, oh, that guy stumbled that word, and you're distracted and it's not funny. So I love how since then I love studying it. So yeah, Paul and I did a lot of just researching things and taking those classes and really like getting into like, how do you do this and how do you do that? And love getting our ass kicked too. Like, it's like, you don't learn anything by, I know what I'm doing. It's like, I love seeing people that are just so good and go, I'm so inspired. Like, teach me. We're still absorbing as much as we can. It's just so fun.
Yeah, one of the best things that happened to us is when we went to Scotland in 2011, and we were introduced to so many acts. We came in
the Edinburgh Fringe.
Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and we were there to get our asses kicked and just see a bunch of shows, and we were just in awe of the people we met there, and of course, you know, we're at that time we're like 8 years in, I guess, of performing consistently in a city. But
yeah, the 8 years though, like we only started to find our voice that last 2 years maybe, because everything else was just bombing, horribly bombing everywhere.
Yeah, but that was like, you all of a sudden, it's like, because Chris and I started finding our voice in like 2008, 2009 maybe, and then we started writing a show every month at this place called the People's Improv Theater. So now we're just trying to find our tracking, and we're getting better. We feel like we're getting better, and then we go to Scotland, and then it's like, now you're seeing people from all over the world. So it was like, oh wow, we get to learn some more now. So it was just like sucking this knowledge, and we took it.
That was
kids in a candy store there.
International acts are so out there and wacky and wild that we were like, what the fuck is this? What is this? And we literally went out there going, wow, you do like 28 shows or whatever it is in a month. Every night you have like a couple nights off, but then everything else is going out. You're competing against, like, I think at the time there was like another, I don't know, 6,000 or 7,000 shows out there. And you're literally just hustling. You're on the street going, oh, come see my show. And you're competing again. And we went in there with these little, like printed out flyers that had the wrong information on it. We went out there and we're seeing people with like billboards. We're like, what is happening? And yeah, we got our ass kicked for a while, which was great. We loved it. And we asked a lot of questions, and it was wild. It was wild.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest festival in the world. So many people there. It's crazy. It's my dream to get there as just an audience member. I mean, obviously a performer would be fantastic, but just an audience member.
It's amazing. When we were there, it was like, we didn't know that there was comedy awards out there. Because we literally, I swear to God, we went out there just to get our ass kicked. We were like, let's just like see what we have. This is gonna, like, we're gonna learn from this, and we're gonna learn from other people, and you know, kind of get some endurance. And then one day the night before our first show, we had two people in the audience, and we had to use both of them in our show because we have a lot of audience interaction. So it was very awkward. So we had like, first night was like 2 people, second night was like 3, and then 5, and then 7. I mean, like, we're in a small little room. So it was very like humbling to be like, you know how when you're in a room and there's not a lot of people in the audience, it's gut check time. It's kind of like, all right, focus. Right. They're the ones that we're performing for.
Yeah, because in New York, we were selling out, you know? So I was like, yeah, we were used to these big crowds. And you go to Edinburgh, I'm like, hi, this is all we have. So I was like, ooh, well, here we go. So we just did it. We just did the work. And yeah, that seemed to be a successful run. And next thing you know, Chris and I didn't even know, but people are coming out to us going, hey, great job, congratulations. Like, oh, yeah, thanks. And like, congratulations on the award. And like, what happened? And then we finally get back to our hotel because we didn't have Wi-Fi or any connection to the internet. So we get back to our little hostel, and we get an email, congratulations, you're nominated for the Foster Awards. We're like, what?
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had like 9 people in the crowd the night before, and they were like, you have to sell out tonight.
We were
like, because we missed the first week of previews because our friend got married, because we didn't know that's what you do, is to go out for the previews so people can know who to go see. And like then our tech girl, she came up, like our one of our best friends, she's like, hey, John Oliver's in the front row, good luck. And we're like, where? And like threw up everywhere.
Well, awesome. Well, we're going to open it up for someone other than me to ask questions, because I could talk to you guys for 5 hours. So I'm going to turn my camera off, and Kale's going to turn somebody else on.
Yeah, John.
Hey, John.
John, you're on mute.
Hey, I'm turned on.
All
wait.
right.
Hey, that's right.
Sorry. You guys are awesome. I saw y'all on Bring the Funny.
Thanks.
Uproarious laughter. I love it. I have a question about your object work, because it is fantastic. I've been improvising for maybe a year or two now, and object work is always something that I lose focus with on stage. I always lose it. So how do you guys, I guess, stay in it, define it? Just, it's so sharp. And how?
I think the one thing that like stuck out for me was he's like directs us in a lot of shows that we've done, and came out to Scotland with us, was our first Second City teacher. He just taught us the fundamentals, and I was like, I'm blowing my mind. And so we would do like the exercise, it's basically like creating a room. So it's like one person walks in, you establish something in the room, like I'm in the kitchen, here's a refrigerator, I'm gonna take this out, shut the door, do something, and walk out. And then the next person comes in, it's like, oh, here's some cabinets, But the second person has seen the room already. So it's like, I know where the fridge is, so I can't go over there. Now I'm going to create cabinets. So you're basically layering this world, and it's just here's a table. And it's like, oh, now we got something to work around. And it seemed like such a simple concept, but it was so hard. We're like, oh my God, like, it's like, oh, dude, you just walk through the table. I'm like, oh, who cares? Like, let's get through the. But then, I swear to God, it's like the one thing. I saw really good improv in this 3-person troupe. And this object work, the thing I loved about it, which was so sexy to me, was that it wasn't like, here's a balloon and here's a thing. And it's all like, look it up. It was just like, they're talking, and all of a sudden he's just like making coffee. It's like, yeah, that's what I'm saying, blah, blah, blah. But like casual. And it's like, that shit's so impressive, but you're not like drawing attention to it. And it's like magic. You just, when things are done like in a certain way and very just, it's hard to describe it. Like you just see the world. You just see like, oh my, like you give the audience credit going like, yeah, there's a cabinet here, but I'm not going to be like, boy, who wants some cereal? And like, but
let me open this cabinet right here that I just painted.
But like in Bring the Funny though, like that one bit where we do like there's like a bank robbery. We're in a car.
Bank robbery.
So that thing has to be pretty like, just so people knew what's going on. And because that's the other thing. It's like, we wanted to set up that world where it was very 1950s, like corny, like, hey, here's a car. So we wanted to play into that whole thing because it let the audience play into the game going like, oh, that's fun. And so when the twist happens, they're like, whoa, what the? Like then we just like pull the sheet on them. Yeah.
So when Chris and I are creating that, we're always looking at the cool thing was when we were living in Queens, I would constantly be over Chris's house, and then I would come in there like at 12 o'clock during the day, and we would write several bits, and then we would perform them for our friends at night. And then we would do something silent. We would ask them, does this read? Does this make sense that I'm putting on a seatbelt? So we always try to be as precise as possible. So even when we've done the robbery scene quite a few times, Chris and I would still rehearse that while we're at our hotel, making sure that it's going to read on TV. So we would constantly do it, make sure this is what people actually do. Mm-hmm. So when you're holding a tray of something, like really hold a tray. Don't have to put it out like this. I'm holding a tray. Like really, how would you hold the tray? How would you bounce a ball? Don't try to exaggerate. Just make sure it's precise enough so people know what to understand and how actually you would do it. Because everyone knows how to put on a seatbelt, so they're familiar with this. Okay? So, yeah, it's familiarity of what people see. So that's why Chris and I like, is this working? That's why it's always good to have audience. If I'm doing something, Chris says to me, like, actually, no, you want to do it a little bit more to make it more, don't be sloppy. We take our time with it. So that's always another thing. Like, be patient.
I think it's also just like confidence, because like when you're doing object work, like all of a sudden if you're going to be doing object work in your head, you're like, all right, I got to open this, I got to do this microwave, or I got to like do this lawnmower and make it look like a lawn. And that's like the most important thing in your head, instead of like the actual scene and making the scene work and making. So if you substitute that, the motions when you're doing with the lawnmower or whatever it is, that's secondary, and that's when it's real. Because you know how to do a lawnmower. You don't need to show. When you're into the scene and you're doing object work, the trick is just making the object work secondary, making the scene work first. Because then you're not thinking about the object work, and you're realizing the more you do it, the more you realize, like, I just put this chair here, so I'm going to walk around this chair. And it's just kind of getting that muscle memory in your head. But
because when you make coffee in the morning, you're not thinking about, I'm making coffee, I'm pulling up the mug. No, you're talking to whoever you're with, or you're just thinking about your day. But you're used to those motions of making coffee, not thinking about it. So yeah, it's like secondary. It's very important to make sure it's about the scene and not about the coffee.
It's not the object work.
Yeah.
Practice
too. Yeah.
Thank you, man. I appreciate
also, a good exercise, carry around something imaginary and never let go of it. Oh, just like, hold something, with a book or whatever. Yeah, pretend you have a book bag on and just see how long you can do it. And don't acknowledge it. Just do it.
I know it sounds so silly, because comedy's just so silly, but it's like, it's literally just repetition. It's like, I'm going to open these cabinets. Well, it's like, well, those are some light ass cabinets, but it's like, if there's some weight to it, you're like, oh, I see the cabinets now. And it's kind of like doing something and going, is it heavy? Is it not? But it's things that seem like obvious, but like when you're doing something, especially if you're doing two things at once, which is doing the scene and doing object work, your brain's racing, right? Because you're like, I gotta be funny, or I gotta make the scene work, I gotta be this character, I gotta do this voice, I gotta make this. But it's like slowing that down, and it's just like your body will just, and that's, I swear to God, when I'm watching some improv and I see someone just doing like casual stuff, like not trying to impress you with whatever, but just like, I don't know, like just like kind of like putting in their earrings, like, yeah, I'll be right there, or whatever, and just move. I'm like, it's so small, but it's like, God damn, like you just made that, like,
subtlety. It's
like the small stuff. They don't need to be like doing this, but it's like that small, sexy, like, like, oh, you didn't shut the door. I'm just like casually, I'm telling you, man, it's, going into a room, setting something up, and keep doing that over and over. But
yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys.
Hey, John.
John, thank you.
All right. Coming to the stage is Roxy.
Roxy!
So I'm outside on my porch and it's thundering and lightning. So if it like crashes and I'm like, it's not you guys.
Smoking.
It's just, I'm always surprised by Mother Nature, even though I know what she's going to do. So my question for you is, I love physical comedy so much. I react more to it than anything else when I'm performing. But is there stuff that you are just like, I don't want to touch that, I don't want to go there? Is it more because of, and what plays into a factor, is it more of like, I'm too old to like be doing tumbling or anything, like my body hurts, not today? Or is it like a mental thing? Like, are there things that stop you from doing certain things?
I think with Paul and I, with the physical stuff, and like, we've never gone to like clown school or taken combat classes, or like, this is how you throw a fake punch. Like, we just kind of like hurt ourselves sometimes, and like we figure out, okay, let's not do that again. Like a year ago today, I think Paul said, he broke his wrist on stage.
Happy anniversary to my wrist.
Like on stage during a show, like it was our live show. We used to do the whole show. It was like an hour show, and then at the very end, we would do the show backwards to like the William Tell overture, and we with blackouts, and at the very end, Paul fell and just went, and his wrist just shattered. And he broke his finger on tour. But anyway, I think the one thing with like physical stuff, for at least Paul and I, is just kind of having trust with the other person. Like Paul and I know that if I jump over Paul's head and over the years I've put on some pounds, so I always apologize. I'm like, it used to be a lot easier. I'm so sorry. But it's just knowing that other person's there so it's like, because giving up your body on stage is terrifying and dangerous and stupid sometimes. But luckily for Paul and I, we just have that trust with each other. And it's a lot of stretching, and it's a lot of like, that was the good thing, because some people see us and we're like these little stocky guys, but like we're pretty agile, like just from like doing it a lot of, with each other. So yeah, I think it's like trust is a huge thing. Like if you're doing an improv jam or you're doing like an improv show or a sketch show, like some new people or someone that you haven't been with too long, like there's trust falls and stuff like that. It's like it's risky because you don't really know if the other person's got you. Not like literally like a trust fall, but so when you're on stage, you want to be like carefree and let everything go, but you also want to be safe. So having someone else watching your back and knowing they're there to catch you, both literally and figuratively, I think that definitely helps. So Paul and I
we don't say no to anything, to everything, but we'll try it first. Like, can we do this? Can Chris go over my head? How far can we stretch? So we go until we can't go anymore, which is fun. And like going back to Chris, it's a lot of trust. So we're not going to do anything stupid. Like we're not going to go on a scaffolding that's it's like 6 stories high and like jump because we're like, no, maybe that's not it. But I did a high wire act, which I don't know how to do. But instead of actually doing a high wire act, I'm like, how can I do a high wire act without going high? So I got a bungee cord, and as I stepped on the cord, it just went all the way down to the ground, and then I did my high wiring act. So you find ways to work around it. Like, how can I twist it a little bit to give this illusion that we're going to do something amazing or big or dangerous, and then it's not so dangerous, but we made a little put a twist on it to make it funny or interesting.
But yeah, it's a lot of practice. I don't think we like just wing it and go like, I'm just gonna throw myself like any of the physical things that we do on stage. We've done it a bunch of times just because
we know it's coming.
And especially getting a little older, we're like, oh, it hurts a little more now. As Paul's breaking bones every show we do now, it seems like.
Yeah, wrist and pinky.
Oof.
So we'll see. Hopefully this year I'll be. Well, actually no.
You're recovering right now in quarantine.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. Yes. Candace, thank you too.
There's actually a picture of me telling Chris I broke my arm, and you see his face going.
Sorry. Tanya!
Hi, Tanya.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. What's up, y'all?
How you
So
doing?
I have a question. What have you seen any animated shows, any cartoons or anime that have really struck you by surprise, just to where it sucked you in so wholly that you just binged the whole thing and then you kind of got obsessed over it? Just curious, asking for a friend.
Well, yeah, like, let's see. I always draw blank, like, I love South Park. Like anime or animation or any of that, or
whatever. Somebody drew it and somebody's moving. That one.
What do you think, Paul? Like I love South Park.
Yeah.
I know I'm gonna remember this. Like it's like almost like if you ask me my phone number, I'm like, and then an hour later.
We are fans of Looney Tunes because that was just way out there. So Chris and I talked about stuff like that when we're talking about our act, and we would refer something to Looney Tunes or reference.
Yeah, with our act, like we would kind of describe ourselves like kind of like live Looney Tunes in a way, because it's when you look back at it, like our show, we have a lot of classical music and a lot of music, and not a whole lot of dialogue, and a lot of Looney Tunes stuff used to be like Tom and Jerry. There's no talking, which is cat, bad guy, good guy. How's he gonna get him? How's he gonna fall on his butt? And I love the simplicity of it. And it's like, if you look at some old cartoons, like they're violent. They're like it's violent stuff, explosions and anvils and guns and this and that, all this crap. But it's like, oh, it's Looney Tunes. So it's like, ta-da, so they got away with it.
So it's fine.
Looney Tunes, like Family Guy I was into for a little while.
Yeah.
And that's like Simpsons in the beginning. Like, what else?
I've watched Rick and Morty. That has some funny physical stuff.
Never watched that.
Yeah, I binged the first 2 seasons of that when it first came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Rick and Morty's, it's fun. Yeah, I just cartoons in general fascinate me because hey, it's a whole world that it's never going to happen. Like, well, stretching or something you see, you're like, obviously Chris and I will never do, but it obviously plants an idea of your head, like, oh, that's actually kind of funny, and how can we do something like that without killing ourselves?
There's actually a great cartoon, and hold on, I think it's my when I came on here, it's my wait. Can I turn off my video? Let's see. No. Anyway, it's a cartoon called Bluey, and it's on PBS. It's a kid show. I got 2 kids. This show cracks me up. It's like from Australia. It's about like it's a family of dogs. It's like a Bluey is awesome. It is awesome. It's so funny and it's so sweet and silly, but it's like I also think with like cartoons, like kid cartoons, it's easy for me at least to not easy, but it's easier to see like story structure and how things evolve in like a kindergarten type of way. Because for me, my biggest thing is like when I'm trying to write a script or something, I'm like, all right, how do I get to the point? Am I not doing this long enough? Is that too short? Is it lopsided? Blah, blah. When you look at a cartoon, it's like it's cool to see like, oh, this is the problem, and oh, this is how they're getting there, and all this, and it's kind of like it's easier to kind of see for you. And Bluey's one of those shows. It's so sweet, it's so hilarious. I highly recommend it. Bluey, I'm telling you, it's so good.
Recommendation received. I'm digging it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
It's very catchy. It's gonna be in your head, so beware.
It's in my head now. What's up, Matthew?
Hey, Matthew. Oh, got your mute.
Yep,
Oh,
there we go. All right, cool.
Yay.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
So, being together 21 years, that's an incredible feat, right? Like, doing this kind of and everything. And as another, like, sketch comedian, and I've actually been with a couple of groups over the years trying to, like, figure out things. Just for you guys, how much of your material would you say is kind of planned out, written, and revised, or how much of it is, hey, let's play with this. I have this idea. Let's improv some things and then go from there.
Yeah, I never throw anything out. Like we've been in other troops that we've started like in the very beginning, and as you know, like scheduling, and it's just something happens, and it's just hard to keep a sketch. Like the sketch troupe, like the life of a sketch troupe in the city, in New York City, I'd say is probably like a year to 2 years, maybe.
Right.
So Paul and I feel like we're like the senior citizens like right now walking around, but like, I always keep everything that I've ever written. Like when I was 16, I wrote a bunch of stuff. Like when I was at like whatever retail store I was working in, and I would always save it because I'm like, that's not good now. I don't get it. There's something there, but like maybe I'll figure it out later down the line. So a lot of times I'll look at my old notebooks every once in a while. I go, oh, that's what I get it now. That's what you couldn't figure out. So I'm always revising things, and Paul and I have had ideas that we could not figure out like a good button for years. Like I'm still like, we still got to do the fortune cookie bit, but I don't know how the fuck to end it. It's like, what's the punch? How do we get out of there? Like there's like 8 things and you're like, it's not there. But when we come up with things, it's like, the cool thing about working with Paul is Paul's completely fearless. Like I swear to God, I've never met anybody that's just like, if you think it's going to get a laugh, I'll do it. It's fine. Like, Paul, can you do the cartwheel into the front row? He's like, yeah, sure. And like me, I'm like, like I like being more like, I'd rather like write this and let Paul, I don't know if anyone's seen like the cookie sketch, but Paul, like we did that show, like Paul's the one that gets the milk and Paul's naked and Paul's, so because Paul's like, yeah, I'll do it. And I'm like, okay, great. But a lot of the ideas is just, it's simple. We try to keep the premises as simple as possible. And not try to like, we've tried to write like witty stuff and things like that, but like,
I would say I would say it's like, I think it's important.
I just spilled my seltzer all over my boobs. Did you see that? I totally missed my mouth.
Nice.
I had to bring it up. It's like I farted and like someone may have heard it, so I might as well just admit that I farted.
Yeah.
Anyway, come on, Paul.
Call it out, you control it. Right.
So it's fair. We're very lucky because we get each other. So Chris, as bizarre as it sounds, Chris will come over in the city one day. Chris is working for this huge tech company and lost in like millions of like and surrounded by hundreds of hard drives and typing away whatever. And he calls me up and goes, "Hey, I'm thinking of a sketch. Do you think you could be fire?" I go, "I don't know. Let's find out." So it was funny because he would just come home with a bunch of ideas. So what we do was like, all right, so what do we do? And so we just kind of like throw ideas back and forth to each other. We usually write a beat sheet down. And then what we do is we listen to a bunch of music. And sometimes the music talks to us and go, "Oh, wait, that sound right there, that could be like a movement." And so now we're writing that with what we hear. So so emotions start sparking. So that's how that creative thing comes.
Yeah, what I say music, and that's why I think we have so much music in our show. The one thing that really triggers any idea for me is classical music or any type of just some kind of feeling, some kind of like you hear a song from like like the what the hell, I don't even know what it is, CW, whatever that like a One Tree Hill kind of like, oh, okay, sorry, so I feel that vibe, okay. So what's the twist? Like, who are these people? I think obviously, when you're writing sketch, you're trying to figure out how do you flip it. And so if I'm listening to classical music, like I'm just basing it off of like Bring the Funny show, when we did the bank robbery sketch. It's like I'm like, okay, so I get the feel. It's like 1950s happy. I'm like, we could be super cheesy. I'm like, all right, so what's the twist though? Clearly, it's got to go dark, and it's got to be some kind of like quick switch. It's like, oh, what about a bank robbery to this music? And so like in the show, they switched it to the, I don't remember, it's like like when it got really like, but usually when we used to do it live, it'd stay the same happy music. Just because we think it's so funny to see a bank robbery with this happy music. We're like, you fell in love with these guys. You're like, oh, these guys are simple and we get what's happening. And they're innocent. And then when you flip it and this music's still playing, it's something really trippy. And then we go right back into like the happy guys. And it's like, what's going on? So yeah, it's kind of, like, when you're writing sketches, it's kind of like what ifs and like, I got a premise for this. And
the reason I asked is because I've seen so many people where it's like it's going to be a written process. It's not really played out very much. It's script revision.
Right.
And then I've had worked with other people where it's like, got this idea, let's like play around and like kind of not similar to what you guys said, but like the beat sheet and the music. It's like that inspires an idea and then move on to something else. Kind of a follow-up question with that, and the fact that you guys are so simpatico with being able to bounce off ideas like that. How do you guys settle the disputes in the group where someone's like, I think this is funny, it's like, I think if we did it like this would be better.
So we have one thing, and it's like my card. I don't even like saying Trump card because anyway, we won't get political. But I don't want to talk about it. Anyway, so we have our comedy mentor, like, is this woman we met at this community theater when we started, Susie Lynch. She's like, set in her mid-70s, maybe 350 pounds, just like this kind, smartest woman, just like such a character, so cool. But she was the first one to really call us out on our shit. So when one of our first troops we had, it was Paul and I and three of other of our buddies we met in this comedy class. And we're like, oh, this would be funny. We're going to do this. This would be great. And like, yeah, isn't this really great? And she was the first person to look at us and go, I don't get it. And we're like, what? Like, what do you mean you don't get it? And she's like, no, it's too long. I didn't like it. And we performed this one show for her that we were going to do. We're like, we're going to do all the sketches, and then you can help us figure out the best ones. And she just was like, ripped them all to shit. That's not funny. I don't get it. It's too long. And
explain
I remember,
why is that happening?
I was like 17 or 18. I was like, she's so old. She doesn't even know. Whatever. She's all like in the past, and she doesn't get to know it. Like I just couldn't. Like I was doing these improv shows for 16-year-old kids who laugh when I said the F word. And, you know, like and this was part of my, like, whatever ego was starting to got crushed. It was great. And it was like, she taught us how to do blackouts, and she taught us when to end a scene. And Paul and I were like, that's too early. You can't end a scene there. Sketches have to be 7 minutes. We have so much funny material that everyone needs to hear.
Look at all these lines are so funny.
And she's like, no, it's too long. Cut it there. She's like, then one day we did a rehearsal. She's like, I'm going to work the blackouts. Do your scene. I'll tell you when to black it out, or I'll black it out when the scene should be over. And we're like doing the scene, and the lights will go out. We're like, what the fuck? We still got like 3 pages. And she would do that, and she would and like cutthroat. And I'm like, is she just trying to like mess with us? Like, I mean, she clearly knows stuff, but like, is she just trying to like see what we can stand up to her? Like, couldn't figure it out. And as Paul and I we moved to the city, and we were in this tiny little apartment, and we're trying to figure things out. Her voice was always like, it's too long, you know, like, you guys aren't as funny as you think. And
it's like,
we were like,
Miyagi coming back.
Yeah, what would Susie do? What would Susie do? And she was right. She was so right, so right, that over the years, we're like, let's end it there. Let's end it here. Susie would end it here. Let's try that. And we're like, oh my God, like she knew she was tough. And it was like this moment where we're like, we were so stupid. And it changed our entire act. We do an hour show, and we can do like 13 to 15 sketches. But our sketches last like, some are 30 seconds, some are 2 minutes, and maybe some are like 4, maybe. And we learned, and that was the biggest thing that I think we had over some troops at that moment was blacking out. Because a lot of troops, like you said, there's revisions, and it's such a tedious, arduous process. And everyone has we have to get that witty line in and make sure to get my contribution and blah, blah. And you're like, and then by the end, you're almost doing it for yourself. Because sometimes, you know, and I'm sure you've seen it when you're watching a sketch troupe, and you're like, oh God, we get where it's going. We know where it's not funny because we know where, oh, there it is. Oh, we have 2 more pages of, so we start, our writing process is like, how do we do this in here? And when we started doing comedy shows at clubs, this was before there was big sketch venues in the city. Like there were like little theaters here and there, but it wasn't like UCB or like, you know, other big things. So we would have to create as much as possible with as little as possible with dialogue and props. And that helped us grow to be like, that sketch is too long.
And also going back to how we figure out like who wins. It's never really that like, we learned how to work with each other. So in the beginning, actually, because we were kids, we would argue like, no, this is funny, no, that's funny, that's funny. And we get so mad at each other. But after like we start working together, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. We started like trusting each other. And then Chris, I have immense respect for him. Chris is to me the funniest person I know. So when Chris says the words, trust me, this is going to work, Chris has 100% a batting average with that. And he doesn't use it a lot. But when Chris pulls something and goes, trust me, this will work, I'm like, okay. But there'd be times where like we would laugh our asses off about something. The next day we were like, oh, that's not funny. It doesn't make sense. So we'll hear each other out. And then once we kind of come to agreement, then we go for it. So we don't really argue or whatever. We just like, once we meet, like, okay, this is good enough.
There's been so many times I'm like, all right, fine, we'll do it your way. Yeah, let's see how this goes. And it's like, it's kind of that. And then I'm like, if it would work, I'm like, yeah, good job. Yeah, all right, work fine. You know, like, but it's just doing it over and over again and being willing to like, you know, kill your babies and stuff with like comedy. You know, a lot of people are so precious with their bits, and it's like, come up with something else. Figure it out. Like everything moves. You know, it's like that crowd sucked. They didn't get it. This crowd, 4 crowds in a row suck. They just don't get my humor. It's like, bro, tweak your humor just a little. But yeah, anyway, sorry for these long-winded answers.
Yeah, I hope we answered your question.
Yeah, no, you did. All right. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Matthew.
Judy.
Hey, Judy.
Oh, wait. Judy, where'd you go, Judy?
I'm always slow because I'm on my iPad. So thank you for being with us this evening. We appreciate you. I have two quick questions. One is I haven't done a whole lot. I'm an improviser with Charlotte Comedy Theater, and I haven't done a whole lot on the Zoom and doing improvisation online. So my question is, what advice do you have, if any, about doing object work in improvising with other people? I was involved with an audition just recently, and we were passing a ball back and forth together, and it's just kind of interesting, the dynamics and how that's changed. And then the second question is, if you could just expand just a little bit more on how you use music in forming your movements and things. I just thought that was pretty fascinating too.
Yeah, so are you specifically saying like object work on Zoom specifically?
On Zoom, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the craziest things, because it's new for us. It's new for everybody. And Paul and I, when we were in Charlotte, the night where we were like right after our show, we're like, wow, we got to figure out what the hell this next medium's going to be, because it looked like this is going to be like there's a lot of changes are going to come into play. Yeah, it's interesting. I wish I had an answer in terms of it. It's like, it's so hard. It's like when you're seeing Zoom, depending on like whether it's 4 screens, 2 people side by side, 1 person, 30 people, whatever it is. It's like it's so hard for the viewer to kind of like know where the ball is, so to speak. I don't know in terms of object work. I guess it would be like simple. The more simple, the better, I guess, right? If it's too busy, it's a little too like, what the hell's going on? But I feel like taking something super simple and really putting all your focus into it and just making that, you know what I mean? Because it's easy. Yeah, go on, Paul, sorry.
Well, and just take one object at a time. For instance, if you're a violin player, something simple like this, and you can play it. Just something, everyone kind of knows what this is. So it's something like something small and simple, or you got some yarn. You just get up here and just make it. It looks interesting. Make it look interesting. Like if you're interesting and you're really into it, maybe that might help. So it's play with this too. Yeah.
That just looked like you were rolling a joint there.
That could be too. I got to work. Say I got it. I got to be more precise.
I think the coolest thing about this medium now with Zoom and the challenges that we're all faced with it, I think it's going to help people in the long run in terms of performance, because your stage is right here, right? I mean, you have this much. You don't have anywhere to go, so it's like it's really making. If you're a big character person, you can't really like, hey, I mean, you can, but it looks a little more muddy if you're doing it here. But I think one of the scariest things with comedy, especially if you're starting out, especially with improv, because, to the average person, improv is just terrifying. It still scares the hell out of me, but it's having that confidence. Paul and I started doing a workshop that we were doing on tour, and one of the things we said at the beginning of the class is, by the end of the class, you're going to walk into the room and sit in a chair, and it's going to be hilarious. You're not going to say a word. The whole class is going to laugh, and everyone laughs. Like, yeah. And so by the end of the class, we say, walk in, take the chair, put it in the center of the room, and sit down. So the person walks in, grabs the chair, puts it in the center room, and sits. And this kind of like intertwines with this music thing. They take the chair, they sat. No one laughed. And they're like, I go, okay, all we're going to change now, we're just going to add a piece of music to it. And it was just the piece of just general, classical, whatever. Same thing. Take the chair, come in the middle of the room, sit, and just see what happens with the music. Turn the music on, the whole class is laughing already. The only thing that's changed is we've added a layer, and it's music. Person hasn't done anything. They walk in the room, huge laugh. They grab the chair, huge laugh. They walk to the set. For whatever reason, just adding that one extra element, the person just kind of became just turned on. And like, it wasn't like being super silly or wacky, but like there was something very like, there was a calm that came over them, but they were very like on purpose. Everything was very like this. I'm moving the chair here. I got a huge laugh, and everything was very like confident. And when you're watching a performer and they have confidence, you trust them. You know, if you go to a stand-up comedy show or an improv show, at least when I do, I still have this level of anxiety as the audience member, because I'm like, please don't pick on me. If you're doing audience work, please don't call on me. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't want to mess your show up. Please don't call me up to do, like, the worst thing to do is ever if you grab an improver to help you out in a scene. It's just the worst thing. It's a disaster. So there's that anxiety. But when you're watching someone and they just have this confidence, everything's very calm. There's the audience just it's like hypnotic. So I think in the same thing with Zoom, where if you're doing object work, just confidence. Now it's like, oh, I'm frantic. Oh, I'm on the phone. They're like, I gotta pick up the phone and I'm just gonna make a call and you're on my time. And the audience, you're like, yep, I believe you. I'm with you. So I think there's a calm presence, everything very like on purpose, and just have that confidence going, I know exactly what I'm doing. And there's a reaction the audience has where they're like, this person knows what they're doing. Like, I don't know why moving a chair to the center of the room and sitting down is funny, but like they're confident right now and I'm with it. So anyway, sorry.
I also, with the music, you know, you ever just kind of, you're in a car or you just put on some headphones and you play one of your favorite tunes and right away it reminds you of something. Like if I hear something during the summer, like, oh my gosh, it reminds me of 8th grade, you know, a certain summer song. So all of a sudden that music kind of gets you thinking to like all these memories, whether it be a breakup, whether it be laughing with your best friend, any type of music, whatever band, whatever it is like you listen like, oh, it sets an emotion off. So there's where you start to play with like, oh, that makes sense. Like I remember 8th grade. I remember how awkward I was. All right, I'm going to be this awkward person who goes to the locker and starts talking to the other person. So that's how it just starts to go. So music is a wonderful form of thing because it has so many emotions running through it, and you're gonna have you'll always have a memory for whatever you listen to, right?
And the other thing why I think music and comedy mix so well, and you know, when you hear the thing where it's like, oh, actors want to be rock stars want to be actors or comedians or whatever it is, like there's that weird connection where they want to cross over. I think with comedy and music, both are so similar in like both are very rhythmic. Both have plateaus, climaxes, pauses. It's like they're rhythms with comedy, with the scene, with a setup, with a punchline, with a twist, with a holdback, with pause, this. Music has that journey too. And I think the two of them together, when you can mix the right scene with the right song, it's magical. Yeah. I mean, it sounds so corny, but they both, when you hear a song and you get the chills, why? If you're working out and you hear a pump-up song, you're like, oh, I can dominate the world, whatever. There's music, it's like there's something that it turns you on. There's something that it triggers in your brain. So that's why for us, it's really fun to like find that right piece of music or that wrong piece of music for the wrong scene. And that is in itself, you know, could be funny. But yeah, music's a great weapon with comedy. I mean, it really is like, you know, it's great. So I'd say if you want to do something and you're in the kitchen and you're like, I want to do a funny scene, you wash the dishes and then put the plates away. Then go, I'm going to wash the dishes again. I'm going to play Brahms or I'm going to play Beethoven or whatever it may be. Any random song. Hear the song, even if you never heard it before, and wash the dishes again and see how you wash it the next time. And that's funny. Like I'm telling you, you're going to find things that are different. You're going to pause. You're going to act. You're going to put the plates away. That's a fun thing to do, I'd say, for anybody. Object work or whatever, hear a piece of music and then do it. And it opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Judy.
Of course, Judy. Thank you so much.
All right. We are going to go to Daia next. Daia's been having some technical issues. Let's see if this works out. Daia, you there? Maybe not. While she's thinking about that, though, can I ask about, you guys have been touring and doing comedy clubs. What's the process for adapting your show to a place where the audience is typically used to watching stand-ups, where they might not have wings, or the stage isn't quite the same. What if anything do you guys do to adapt?
That's the thing. It's like when we first started doing clubs, we would do open mics, and it would be like a line. The lineup would be like 20 stand-ups and then us, and we would just kind of come on. And the cool thing was the fact that we were different alone kind of got the audience's attention. What we did after that, wasn't always great. We'd go up there. The show would start at like 7 at night. We'd get up at like 12:30 in the morning, and then bomb. But we just did that a bunch of times. But I guess when we get to different clubs, we've learned to have our act like we try to make it as mobile as possible. Like we can just set up shop and we're a one-man band. We can figure it out. Like doesn't matter what we just did a show recently that didn't have wings or anything, so we had to like set up like table. It was in Phoenix, I think.
Denver. Remember, it was Denver. Yeah, we put table up and we did the cloth.
Oh right. Yeah. It's kind of the fun for us too, though, because it's like I feel like if it was all the same, you kind of go like, oh god, like we kind of like that challenge, or
And we use it. We definitely
with stand-up clubs. The stage, it's very small. So, right. And Paul and I are two wide dudes, so we would have to. When we trained on that for years, so luckily, like if the stage has a little more room, we'll be fine. We'll be able to set up something off stage or figure it out.
Do you have to have like a specific writer you send ahead of time to say we have to have these things, or you just figure it out once you get there?
No, they've seen the cookie sketch that we've done on the show, and that's what we end the show with. We would do that on tour, and that's their biggest concern, obviously. Like hey, so what's the mess situation with this milk? And we're like, we're not dicks. We get it. We don't go into a place like, hey, thanks for the stage, destroy, and then we walk out. Yeah. We bring our own like rug. On the show, we were able to really like go all out because they were like, go for it. We don't use nearly as much milk. We use like almond milk. Is that right? What do we use?
Almond milk and water.
And water. We mix it so it doesn't like stink. It doesn't stain anything. And we're very respectful of stages and places because we have a ton of friends that own places and we're just not assholes. Like, we don't want to go to a place. We've been to shows where people would destroy the stage, and we're like, "What is happening?" But no, we just say as long as you guys have like blackouts and we can, we have a music cues. Like it's pretty simple, But yeah, we don't go in there going like, "We need this and that." Like we're like, as long as the lights go on and off, we're good. We'll figure it out. Yeah, it makes it more fun.
Super. I'm going to, Daia got mad and left, I think. So I'm going to go to Graham next. Graham, if you're there, come on out.
What's up, Graham?
So I had a question kind of in regards to the writing process between the two of you, not so much as far as like the individual, like how the writing part happens, but kind of the, for lack of a better word, the writing ethic or the work ethic. How do you kind of make that work? Not necessarily like, situation where you start writing separately and then you come to somebody looking for them to help you finish it, but for sitting down blank pages for both of you and saying, all right, we need X amount of pages and we need to do it by this time. Let's just go ahead and do this.
Yeah, it's kind of been like a rolling process for us with sketches. Since our sketches aren't typically super long at all, it's helped us. And since we've got a lot of sketches that have minimal dialogue and it's more of an action and stuff, I think Paul and I we probably have about 500 or 600 bits that we have like on the back burner. But like in terms of writing, like in the past, we'd have like a thing called like lockdown where we would go, we're going to stay in a room for all weekend and just like bang out a bunch of different bits. But it's literally just like, which annoys my wife and, but your brain, my brain, it's always on. So I'm always like looking for bits and I always just kind of drift off. I'm like, oh, this is a good bit. Oh, what about this? What about that? Like Paul did that today. You said something about us being old and I came up with like a new thing I got to pitch to you. But like, then Paul will kind of go like, like chickens. And I'm like, okay, chickens. And, Paul like feeds my head. And then like I go to Paul and then we rework it. Like Paul will come to me and go, I got a thing for like this thing kind of happens. And then like, I'll go, okay. And then I'll like go in my weird, my brain, and then I'll throw it back out at Paul. And from there, we'll just kind of trim it down. But we don't really have like I wouldn't say like Tuesday night writing session or anything like that.
Right. It's not really system. We are pretty fortunate in the city because we live right next to each other. So
Paul and I moved to the city. We moved into a studio that was 16 by 8, and we had bunk beds. So we like started off like as like we never went to college. We went to like the city, and that's like, so we were just like, we're like brothers. So we were just, there was never like a, like, all right, hello coworker, let's get to work. We would just talking. We're just best friends. So we're always talking, go, oh, that'd be a funny bit. And then we just kind of like take something out of a conversation. Yeah. Oh, what if we did that? Oh, that's cute. Or, oh, what and then, I moved to Queens, and then Paul, like, I'm living with my girlfriend, who's my wife at the time right now. We're like in our place, and I knew Paul was moving in the neighborhood, and he calls me up. He's like, hey man, hey, look out your window. And I'm like, oh no. And I'm thinking he's across the street or down, whatever. And I'm like, where are you? And I look, he goes, look to your right. I look over, and then there's like a window separating my apartment and Paul's apartment. He moved like right next door, just sit like on the 3rd floor, pop his head out. So we would just stick our head out the window, like, hey, I got a bit about this. And he's like, oh, okay. And then we get yelled at. And
it was 227.
Yeah. So our process has always just been us talking and hanging out.
That's it. Yeah. Calling, like he would call me from work, or even if we do sit down with each other, like when we're doing our shows, as long as we're in a room together, and 3.5 hours can go by and nothing will happen. And then all of a sudden, like, we have an idea. And then something starts rolling. And sometimes it's not working. Like, we're sitting there. Chris and I will go for a walk. Or we'll go, sometimes we go play video games just to get our minds out of it. And then we come back to like, okay. So I guess our process is just keep on throwing ideas back and forth with each other, and eventually something's going to stick.
Yeah, it's just us being around each other and just kind of knowing, luckily finding our style. So like it kind of helps narrow down what works with our bit. We're not going to do like a political monologue or that's not what we do basically. So the stuff that works for us is silly, and we try to make it as simple as possible. So we always try to layer the sketch. So it's like, all right, so the guy walks in the room and all of his furniture is missing. Okay, great. Okay, so how's it missing? Okay, so then someone walks out of the closet and then we layer it, and they're like, that's too long. Cut that guy out. Move it. So it's like structuring bits, and luckily since we found our style, that definitely helps mold bits and cuts out a lot of fat that we otherwise wouldn't use.
Yeah.
Do you ever find it hard to discern between the moments where you're just trying to make each other laugh and the moments where you're kind of pitching an idea?
No, that's kind of the fun part, because we've had so many bits where like we go, this is gonna be so fun. We got a pepper costume once. It was like a whole thing where it was like Paul was on stage, and I was trying to it was, instead of the shaving cream bit, it was I put like a hot pepper in his hand, and I was itching his nose for him to like just eat the pepper. It was something stupid, and then basically the whole thing, like the music, like Oh Fortuna or something comes on, and we had a pepper costume come out, and the lights went red, and then like there was like an ice cream bit where horrible. We did it once. People laugh because it was sloppy and dumb, but like there'll be bits where like I don't know if this is gonna work, but like let's just try. Like the cookie bit was, I think it was one bit where I was just like, yeah, we love cookies, and like that'd be really funny if like someone tried to seduce you with cookies, and I'm like, what if a cookie tried to seduce you with cookies? And Paul's like, yeah, all right. And then maybe then like pour the milk, and it gets how sexy do we make it? And so it's dumb. Like when you're talking to your friends about any comedy ideas, most of the ideas are stupid and silly and ridiculous. And it's kind of like going like, yeah, let's just see what happens. Like I feel like if you edit it too much and you go, I don't know if the crowd's gonna like this so much. I mean, you need to have a little bit of that editing or that kind of like thought process of going, maybe not this. But a lot of it's just kind of like trust falling with the audience. And it's fun when sometimes it's fun when you fall on your face and it's just like silence. And we're like, ooh, like Paul and I would be backstage some shows, and we know each other so well that I would cut bits during the show. So like we do a bit and black out, and it was just it bombed, and we're like backstage and go, cut this bit, move this bit here, cut it, and we go right back out, and like, and then our tech person would go, oh shit, no, the show's going bad, they're cutting bits, you know. So it's all just like it's still a big work in process, but they're pregnant.
Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man.
All right. You guys got room for one more? Can we take one more?
Sure.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
All right. Then we got Will.
Will. Hey, Will.
Well,
Hi, sorry, it's a little bit of a seance in here. My light bulb went out mid-show, and so I had to like scramble and get a lamp. And so I got my Ouija board out, and I'm ready to work.
So Will's got the professional setup. I love that.
Yeah. So here's my question: do you guys feel like it's almost like a chicken and an egg type question? Do you feel like your natural chemistry and time together is what sharpen your skills, or do you feel like that time spent in New York or a big city like that is what really kind of got you to where you are right now? Like, which one do you feel was more influential in your development as a team?
I honestly think like, for me at least, I think it was us trying the process of us trying to find our voice by failing miserably over and over again. Like when we would commute to the city, and we'd be like, oh, we're going to New York. This is it. And then we would write our bit on the train, and then we'd bomb horribly, and we'd run back to the train like, that was great. Oh my God, this is so cool. Like even though it sucked, and I think it was just us. It just kind of molded us, and especially I think being in New York City, where you're going to these. We would go to stand-up clubs, and it's funny when you see these people that are blowing up now. We're like, oh my God, we know him. We knew him when he was this guy. We knew him when his hair was like this or whatever it was. And it was just us kind of falling on our face. And our friend, a lot of things happened at the same time, I think. I think we got closer as friends because we had to confide in each other while we were just kind of falling on our face. And it took us about 6 years of just like trying to like just hammer it home and go like, what are we missing here? And as that's happening, just having that like, we still love this. We're still, and just that pursuit of trying to figure it out. But I think like the city kind of like beat us to our knees a bunch of times. And when we found that something worked and we started to find our voice, it was that much more like victorious. And like, we're still nowhere real, you know what I mean? We like that when we were on the show and stuff. And, I don't think there's ever a plateau where like, you're like, here we are. It's like, we're right back in the middle of like, let's keep going, like we're getting older and fatter and we're like, this is great. But I think it's been a process of just going like the other day I pitched something to my wife and she was like, you guys know you're not like the young guys, right? Like you get like your people your age need to kind of have your like shit put together a little bit, or at least have an idea. And I'm like, you can't play that like just at a college guy much anymore. I'm like, oh my God, are we like that? But yeah, I think it's just been like.
And I think Chris and I both share the love of our show of comedy, so that gelled us together. And so also Chris and I are very competitive, in the sense like we would do a show and it wouldn't go that great. So Chris and I'm like, no, we're gonna get this back. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back to our place. And we're gonna rework it and we're gonna go at it again. So we both were hungry. And we bonded over that, and I think that helped our chemistry out. So I think all these ingredients just kind of came in. It's like we were in New York, we had to freaking find a way to perform and do our show. So how do we do that? So both having that want and that desire, I think really helped us along.
And when Paul and I got the show, when the Bring the Funny NBC show aired, we bawled. We were like, because it was just like, you're doing it for so many years and just any kind of victory. It's like, this, fuck yeah. It's like, it was just such a cool, we're realistic. We're never going to be like, we're going to be millionaires and they'll be on top of the world and we'll be, but that was never the thing with us. We just really loved performing together. And whenever there's like victories, it's when you do anything, when you work your ass off at something and you feel like it's just like this uphill battle, any victory or any plateau or any place you get to, it just kind of motivates you to just keep on trucking with that stuff. But yeah, I think the city just whooped our ass, and we kind of loved every second of it. You know, there's times where we wanted to quit, and we're like, this sucks, and the next day, I'm like, I got a bit about this. We're like, okay, let's, you know. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of like loving what you're doing, and you know, and setbacks like the tour, like with the tour, we're like, all right, this is cool. We're gonna like make new contacts in these places, and you know, obviously the world kind of stops. So we're like, oh, okay, so now we're not gonna do that tour anymore. So it's like, I think that's just kind of what life's all about, and it's just we love we just like, you know, love doing it. But yeah, I thought it was just New York kind of kicking our ass, kind of molded us and made us appreciate any little victories, you know.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Thanks, man.
All right, thanks, Will. I'm going to invite everybody to turn their cameras back on. Thank you guys for taking the time to talk to us and share your insights.
Thank you guys. This was awesome.
Fun.
I'm surprised anyone showed up. That's so cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the performer, right? Fears that.
Yeah,
what if nobody shows
I
up?
know. I'm like,
Well, how many times we're like, I hope someone comes to our show.
yeah, I know. We're like, yeah. But thank you guys. This was awesome.
Yeah,
No, this is good.
we really appreciate it. Thank you guys for answering my stalkery message on Instagram. I appreciate that.
Oh God, we're
Yeah, she was asking earlier where you live, so be careful if you see her driving by your
Stanford.
house.
You know where we live, Trumbull. We know where you live. We know where you know where we are.
I think Carla froze up.
Oh no!
He's in a
She's
car
in her
right
car coming to
now.
Stanford now.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's outside doing it. She bought the house right across from you. She's
Yeah.
She did her show in the bathroom of an Amtrak train right now. That's what she's doing. This whole Q&A right now.
So hopefully Chris and I are working on some more stuff. And if anyone ever has any questions or whatever we do, you can go to our website. All information there's there. You can actually email us, and we'll probably respond. So we're open. We love to talk to our audience. I mean, if it was without you guys, we don't have a show. So
Or
we really appreciate people.
If tonight, if you want, if you can like send us a message on Instagram or something, or follow us, like we'll follow you back. Because like we love meeting. It sounds so corny, but honestly, God, we love meeting new people. We love like watching what other people are doing and their acts and stuff. So if you don't mind just Facebook stalking you guys or Instagram stalking.
Do you see how excited John got just now? John is. Great, fantastic. We can't wait till you get to tour again and hopefully get back to Charlotte.
Yeah, for sure.
We can hang out some.
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely. We'd love to do that.
Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for coming out and participating as well.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you for
Nice meeting you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.
All right, take
See you
care.
on Instagram.
Bye.